morning, everyone.
And yesterday we were trying to understand the beginning of the classical system. And I told you that there are a few assumptions with which we start the classical system. And we discussed few. And then we are talking about flexible prices. So the classical system is unique in terms of the assumption of full employment. Okay, full employment is one of the most crucial assumption for the classical system, because it says that all the economic resources will be fully utilized and therefore there will be no unemployment. So when you say full employment, or when classical systems say it is full employment, it means that, try to see, okay, what I am writing, how they talk about unemployment. All those willing to work. Is the screen visible and is the voice there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So all those willing to work at the ongoing market wage rate are fully employed. Therefore, any unemployment is always voluntary. Now these few ideas are very important for us to understand, that all those willing to work at the ongoing market wage rate are fully employed, and all those who are not willing to work themselves, they are only unemployed. So full employment does not mean zero unemployment. There can be people who are unemployed, but they are voluntarily unemployed. Okay, involuntary unemployment is not at all there, as you see in our economy or any other economy these days. So they are talking about a system where all those people who are, or all the factors which are willing to be occupied at the market price, they are fully occupied. Okay. But at the same time, when they say that there is full employment, they also say that full employment can include some structural and frictional unemployment. So if there is unemployment, which is anyhow voluntary, people themselves, they don't want to work and that's why they are unemployed. But this voluntary unemployment is also due to these two factors, structural or frictional, because rational human beings or rational factors of production they will not be interested in remaining idle. They will always want to work. So all those who are not working, there can be structural reasons or there can be frictional reasons, and these are the two types of unemployment which they are talking about. So sometimes suppose someone asks you a question that if there is full employment, does it mean zero unemployment? So your answer is that no, it does not mean zero unemployment, because there can be some structural unemployment, there can be some frictional unemployment. Now the second question will be that what is structural and what is frictional unemployment? Okay. So structural unemployment is due to the change in structure of the economy, due to the change in structure of the economy. Maybe there is a transition taking place in the economy where agriculture sector is gradually losing its share in GDP and industry and service sector contribution is rising. So there is an obvious result where people will be moving away from agriculture to the industry and service sector. So the structure of the economy itself is changing, and that is why people are shifting from agriculture to industry and to service. But this structure will not be immediate. This change will not be immediate. It will take some time. So for the time being, when the people are moving from one sector to the other sector, and if they are unemployed, then this is structural unemployment. Is it okay? Are you able to understand this?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
मैम एक और क्वेश्चन है.
बताओ.
मैम जैसे जो एक्सपोर्ट होता है उसमें इंजेक्शन होता है और इंपोर्ट में लीकेज होता है. तो इंपोर्ट में तो हमारे पास आ रहा है एक कंट्री में, तो फिर वहां पर कैसे लीकेज हो जाएगा?
See, I will take up this question in the last. Okay, let us not break the flow and let us continue with this, and then at the end I will talk about your question. Okay, so structural unemployment is related to the change in the structure of the economy, or maybe the way the production is taking place. Earlier the production process was more labor intensive. Gradually firms started using more capital based technology, capital intensive technology, or more technological changes in the production process is taking place. And because not every labor is familiar with the use of technology, or maybe he is not having appropriate skills to work with the technology. So for the time being, when this process will have adjustment, that unemployment is structural unemployment. Similarly, when you say frictional unemployment means when people are switching their jobs from one sector to another. So you can see that in both the situations, it is a choice of factors of production by themselves. So frictional, as you can see from the word, there is a friction taking place in the system. So, and this is a natural process that people keep on switching their jobs. People switching their jobs willingly. So I got employed for the first time as a basic school teacher or a primary school teacher, but I still sit for UPSC examinations, and then I keep on applying here and there. So I try to move to higher education, or I try to move to the I want to become a DM, or I want to become IPS officer. So although I have a job, but I'm trying to switch my job, and that because while applying for UPSC or while applying for any of the other job, I may be getting myself registered in the unemployment bureau. So that makes me unemployed. So this is again my willingness. Okay. So you can see that what classicals initially said, that any unemployment is always voluntary. So if people are willing to work at the ongoing price, they are always occupied. Okay. And at the same time, the follow-up assumption which the classical system is talking about, fully flexible prices. When we say fully flexible prices, prices include wages, interest rate, rent, goods prices, any other price if you say. So price for labor is wages, price for capital is interest rate, price for land is rent, price for goods is the goods prices. And these are all flexible. When you say flexible, what do you mean by it? You can show it through a diagram. This is demand curve. This is supply curve. Okay. So now suppose demand rises, and this was the price. This is E. So this was the equilibrium price. Now suppose demand rises. So when demand goes up, price also goes up, and therefore there is an equilibrium in the economy again. This is E dash. So this is PE dash. So you can see that prices are fluctuating always. Prices are changing always. So the adjustment mechanism is taking place through price. So prices are flexible. If the demand goes down, the prices may decrease. E double dash. Same thing happens with the supply. If any change in supply takes place, suppose the supply decreases, S double dash, because when there is a decrease, you are saying supply curve shifts backwards. So if this is taking place, maybe you will find that this type of situation can be there, where if you are taking output here on the x-axis and you are taking price on the y-axis, so you will find that as the demand rises, the price increases, but at the supply decreases. Then again the price is rising, but the level of output remains the same. So the economy comes back to this level. Okay, so this demand and supply adjustment through flexible prices will continuously be taking place in the economy, and that makes this system full employment. Okay, is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So now we are coming to a very important diagram for this classical system. Okay, when you say full employment, so full employment is always shown through this diagram. Here you take level of income Y. Okay, and here you take prices. So you write price level. You don't write prices because this is the price level at the macro economy level. So this price is the general price level, which is at the macro level. So now in this case, the aggregate supply curve looks like this. Aggregate supply curve, which is fixed at this full employment level, because all the resources are fully occupied, all the resources are fully utilized. So the aggregate supply will remain constant, okay, and will remain perfectly inelastic. The supply curve is perfectly inelastic. Aggregate supply curve is perfectly inelastic. That means it cannot change at all, because you have already used all the resources. So now there is no scope left for further increase in output. So output has become constant. So whatever happens with the demand, as the demand rises, AD1, AD2, AD3, as the demand rises, what is happening? See, only price is rising, nothing else. Supply is not going to change. Price is increasing from P1 to P2 to P3. And this curve, this vertical aggregate supply curve, is the most important diagram for the classical system. Okay. Aggregate supply curve is vertical on the x-axis. Aggregate supply curve is perfectly elastic. Aggregate supply does not change. Why it is not changing? Because we are talking about long run. So in the long run, all the resources are fully utilized. There is no unutilized capacity, and therefore full employment exists in this economy. And full employment also exists because prices are fully flexible. Prices can move up or prices can move down. Now this leads to the next point. What is the next point? Classical system is a system where automatic adjustment in the economic variables takes place without any time lag. Now this is another important assumption for the classical system, and it has two parts, okay? One is this automatic adjustment. Just I showed you in the diagram, demand and supply curves are freely moving here and there. As the demand rises, maybe supply can rise or supply can decrease. So automatic adjustment takes place between demand and supply, and how it takes place? It takes place through price. Price will change and demand and supply will be again equal to each other. And this adjustment is taking place without any time lag. The moment you introduce any change in the system, the moment immediately it will give you the result. There is no time lag. And in economic decisions, time lag is very important, right? If there is a time lag in any of the decision or any of the economic activity, then the cost is affected. Then the return on that activity, that is the profit, gets affected. So if there is a time lag, you have a risk. If there is no time lag, you don't have a risk. Okay, like most of the economic activities in the real world does not take place immediately.
Ma'am, what is time lag?
Time lag means you are taking decision at time t1, but the actual event will take place in time t2. Like you thought immediately, suppose right now we want to consume, say an ice cream. So immediately, the moment you thought about ice cream, immediately the ice cream is available to you. You have the price to pay. There is a vendor to sell. So if it immediately takes place, there is no time lag. But now, if you want to have ice cream, you need to move out. You need to go to the market. Then you have to find out the vendor. You should have the price to pay, capacity to pay. So you should have that enough amount of money with you, and then you will buy. And maybe because it is too early, so the markets are not open. So you have to wait till the markets are opening, and then only you can consume. So there is a time lag. Time lag at the macroeconomy level, when the demand is changing. Suppose there is an increase in demand. So immediately the increase in demand will not be matched with the supply, as you have observed yourself. During the pandemic, the demand for oxygen cylinders, the demand for medicines was rising, and it was rising very fast. But was there immediate supply of oxygen cylinders or hospital beds? Because it will take some time. Producer will now realize that, okay, now the demand has gone up. So he will start increasing the production. Immediately he can sell whatever he has in stock. Okay, but already because all the factors of production were fully utilized, so there was no possibility of increasing the supply. So there will be a time lag, or there will be a considerable time which will be required to change the supply or demand in the market. And this is the adjustment time. Adjustment time is the time lag. Is it okay? Are you able to understand this, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So now you should wonder that why classical economists are talking about automatic adjustment. Because generally when you say automatic adjustment at the macro level, so it means that today government has announced something and immediately the result will come. Government says make in India. So immediately make in India will start. Or government says zero poverty. So immediately the poverty is becoming zero. The poverty ratio is becoming zero. We said in 1980, universal education, 100% literacy. And we are still at the level of 70%, 75% of literacy in the country. Okay. We planned in 60s self-sufficiency in agricultural production, but we are still far away from that situation. We are still not self-sufficient in terms of agricultural production. Why? Because all the economic variables, all the economic events take place with a time lag. Basically, time lag is related to demand, supply, and price. So now you can see that these three assumptions, which are the three assumptions we are talking about: full employment, fully flexible prices, and automatic adjustment mechanism. These three are interrelated, and they exist only because of long run. only because of no direct government intervention. So all the assumptions become interrelated. When they are saying that they start with long run, so long run will have some outcomes. Okay, so that's how the classical system is developing. There is no direct government intervention. If government intervenes in some particular activity, then government will make rules and regulations. First, it will get passed through. First, there will be a committee formation. Then there will be a recommendations from that committee. Then it will go to the parliament. If it gets passed from the two houses, then there will be an act. Now this act will be implemented. So you can see that there is a sufficient time lag. Immediately anything is not happening. Okay. Or there can be several examples of this time lag. So, and there is one more thing which we should clarify here itself. You are saying that all the resources are fully utilized. So when you say fully utilized, it means that up to their potential, they are fully utilized. There is no partial unemployment. There is no disguised unemployment. As in our case, it is in agriculture. The whole family works in the agriculture field, but their productivity is low. So classical system is not talking about underemployment or disguised unemployment or partial unemployment. They are only talking about resources are fully utilized. So there is no excess capacity, there is no idle capacity lying in the economy. Now with these few assumptions, these are the few assumptions. There are n number of assumptions, okay? But these are the few important assumptions, and the seventh important assumption is perfect competition in the market. Perfect competition in the market. Another assumption is price is any price is equal to the marginal productivity. Okay. Now, another important aspect of this classical system. Supply creates its own demand. And this law is given by J.B. Say, and we call it Say's law of demand. Okay, Say's law. So what is Say's law? J.B. Say is a French economist, and he is a classical economist, and he has given a law. He has proposed a law for explaining full employment. So what does this law say? Supply creates its own demand. Every time when the supply exists, automatically demand will be generated. So that means what is more important is supply. First there is supply and follows the demand. Okay. So every time supply will create its own demand, and therefore there will be no excess production. So no excess production. So we will understand this law again when we are talking in detail the theory, but assumption is based on this Say's law. So yesterday someone was saying that classical system is a has only supply. So what do you mean by that? Actually, you should not be confused with this. The point is that supply is more important. And therefore, we say that classical system is a supply-driven system, supply-based system. Okay? So you are saying that aggregate supply is the important factor for full employment. Aggregate demand has no role. For full employment. So this is the idea. It does not mean that they are not talking about demand. They are talking about demand, but aggregate demand in their system becomes a passive factor. It is not an active factor. It is not the important factor. What is important is only aggregate supply, and aggregate supply becomes fixed or remain fixed at the full employment level. So these are the two basic ideas in the classical system related to demand and supply. Okay. So now we'll talk about full equilibrium or full employment theory. So you will see that when you are talking about the classical system, there can be a general overall question on the classical system that explain the classical system, or there can be specific questions related to output determination, employment determination, or income determination in the classical system or according to the classical economist. And do you remember that I have already explained to you that when we talk about macro level economic activities, we always have this assumption: O is equal to E is equal to Y. So I hope you remember this, that there is a relationship between output, expenditure, and income. So once you decide the level of output, you are deciding the level of expenditure, and at the same time you are deciding the level of income. And you will see that when you will go through the methods of national income accounting, you have three methods: income method, expenditure method, output method. And they all will give you the same value of GDP. Okay, so the concept of national income accounting is coming from the theory where it says that output, expenditure, and income are simultaneously determined in the economy. So now let us discuss this full employment theory. So this full employment theory is primarily related to full employment in the labor market, but then other factors are also fully occupied. So when you say full employment, that means there is no idle capacity, idle production capacity, or excess production capacity, or unutilized resources. When you say unutilized resources, you mean factors of production. So all the available land is fully utilized, all the available capital is fully utilized, all the available labor force is fully utilized, all the available entrepreneurs are fully occupied. That is full employment. Okay. So full employment starts with labor market equilibrium. Full employment can be explained through labor market equilibrium. So labor market is the market where demand for labor and supply of labor takes place. Okay. Now, there is a demand for labor, there is a supply of labor. Now, you from the BA1 class, you must be remembering that there is a demand for labor and there is a supply of labor. Now, tell me that who has the demand for labor?
मैम इन
Firms.
ये क्लास 1 हम लोगों ने पढ़ा था कि हाउस होल्ड वो फर्म्स के पास मैम डिमांड होती है, फर्म्स है ना डिमांड.
Yes, so everyone is right. Demand for labor is with the firm. So who demands labor? That is the firm. Why firm has a demand for labor? Because firm will be producing goods and services. So in order to produce goods and services, firm has a demand for labor. So demand for labor by the firms. Okay. And supply of labor,
मैम
you
हाउस
must be remembering
Household.
from the household. So households will be supplying and demand will be from the firms. Now when there will be a demand for labor, firms will also decide a price for labor. And when there is a supply of labor, households will also decide a price for the labor. Okay, whatever they are supplying. So because you have two forces, so you can draw this diagram. There is a demand for labor, which is DL. Now you can see that DL is a usual downward sloping curve. So demand for labor is represented by a downward sloping curve. Okay. On the x-axis, what you are taking? Labor. You will say you can say quantity of labor or man hours. Generally, when we are talking about the labor market, we don't talk about number of labor, but we talk about man hours. Number of hours a labor is working, and that's how we identify labor. Okay, so it is not always units of labor, but it is man hours, the hours which labor is working for a firm or for an economic activity for which he is paid. Okay, so out of 24 hours, if we supply 8 hours of labor for paid work, so this is the man hours. Okay, or you can simply say labor hours. So it is not necessarily number of labor, quantity of labor. It can be quantity of labor, but it is generally measured as labor hours or man hours. Here you are taking wage rate. Why wage rate? Because price of labor is wage rate. So demand for labor is a downward sloping curve. That means that higher the wage rate, lower will be the demand, and lower the wage rate, higher will be the demand. So you say that demand for labor is a function of wage rate. And see, we are writing a small w here. Okay, so this has its meaning. Every time when you are using the equation or when you are using the terms, every term has its specific meaning. Okay, so you can write a capital W and you can write a small w. Capital W means money wage. And small w means real wage. So demand for labor is a function of real wage rate. That means demand for labor is a function of W by P. Now this is all capital. Okay. Or demand for labor is a function of marginal physical productivity of labor, MPPL, and W is equal to MPPL is equal to W by P. So this is on the basis of the assumption. In the assumption we have written that every demand and supply depends on price, and every price depends on the marginal productivity theory. And the relationship between demand and wage rate is negative. Higher the wage rate, lower will be the demand of labor by the firms, and lower the wage rate, higher will be the demand for labor by the firm. Now, why the demand for labor exists? As I told you, that firms, in order to produce goods and services, they demand labor, or they need factors of production. Okay. Now, supply curve. Supply of labor is a positively sloped curve. This is SL. Okay. Now, SL is also a function of wage rate. That is the real wage rate. Maybe you are wondering what is real wage rate? Purchasing power. Purchasing power of goods and services. So supply of labor will depend on wage rate, that is the real wage rate, that is the amount of goods and services which they are able to purchase. And again, supply of labor is a function of W by P or MPP L, marginal productivity of labor. So all labor, that is all the households, are aware about their marginal productivity level, and therefore they know how to equate the marginal productivity with the wages. And therefore the equilibrium will take place and the wage rate will be decided. That is W star, and this will be D is equal to S, and this D is equal to S will be indicated as N, that is level of employment, and that is NF, full employment. So NF is full employment of labor. All those who are willing to work at the ongoing wage rate, they are employed, they are occupied. Okay. So let me stop here and then yes, any related question which you have?
Ma'am, is supply of labor also negatively related with real wage rate?
What, Nazneen?
मैम ये जो सप्लाई ऑफ लेबर है ये भी नेगेटिवली रिलेटेड है इससे
No, why it is a upward sloping curve. So when there is an upward sloping curve, we always know that there is a positive relationship. Why this question has to?
मैम ये जो मैक्रो में भी
Just wait. Yes, Shivansh.
मैम स्मॉल w कैपिटल W बाई P के इक्वल कैसे हुआ?
This is your money wage. This is the price level. So if you divide any of the monetary value with the price level, that will give you the real purchasing power of this money. You have 10 rupees with you. Okay. Now 10 rupees itself, 10 rupees does not has any purpose for you until and unless you can purchase something with this 10 rupees. So whatever you purchase, if you deflate it by the price level, that will give you the real purchasing power of this variable. And that's how when you do W by P, you get small w. So by small w means W by P. You are deflating the money wage rate by the price level. Okay. So W is the real purchasing power of the labor, or the real value of the goods and services produced by the labor. Okay.
Okay.
So maybe the question which was related to export and import, I will start your next class with that question. Okay. So please wait for the next class. Yes, Piyush, is there any question?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, we are talking about no direct government intervention. So are classical economics only thinking about the two-sector economy?
Yes, you can say like that, but it is, I don't say like that because then you will become confused, because there are classical economists who have given the theories for international trade also. So whatever you say, whether it is a closed economy, whether it is an open economy, remember, G does not exist. Even if it is an open economy, G does not exist. So yes, as someone is writing, there is free trade everywhere. So no government active intervention. Okay, let us discuss this in the next class. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.